pillars of the church where we believe God is guiding and directing us, and for us to get to know you. So that's September 21st at 4 p.m. The only thing I need you to do is, if you plan on attending, email amy@pinoaks.org, and she will make sure that we get the booklets printed out for you guys. She'll let our kids team know that if you guys need childcare, we'll have that provided. But we need you to email ahead of time so that we know how many to plan for. Easy enough? So the last thing I have for you guys this morning is today's a special day, right? Today is, we have multiple birthdays in the church, I found out, but our lead pastor, Phil Morgan, it's his birthday this morning. So I don't even see him back there. He's hiding right now. Oh, he is back here. He's hiding way in the back. But it's Phil's birthday today. He is 42 years old. I'm aging him a decade in every service. I said 32 first service, 42 this service. We're working towards his actual age, but no, listen, we know how important Phil is to our church, right? He said, wow, back there. I heard that. Yeah, I heard that. I've got young ears still. But no, we love Phil. He is so important to our church. Man, he does a lot for us as Pin Oaks, but he also does a lot for each of us individually, right? And so make sure you let him know today that you love him, you're thankful for him, wish him a happy birthday. You guys could all try and do it during greeting time. He still has to get up here and give a sermon, and I will start pushing him up to the stage at some point. But let him know that you love him today. Let him know that we're thankful for him. Take that opportunity before you leave today just to say, happy birthday, Phil. Hope you have a great day. We love you. We care for you. Cool? So we're going to stand right now, and we're going to greet each other, because one of our values is that we are intentionally connected. So if you guys will stand during this greeting time and make sure that everybody around you is greeted and welcome this morning, I'd appreciate that. As Phil runs up here before y'all can wish him happy birthday.
We're going to go ahead and get started. I know, I'm ending too soon. All you extroverted people are like, stop it. Just stop it. And all the introverts are they're like, thank you so much. I got you. Either way, I'll probably be in trouble when it's all said and done. Good morning, church family.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, appreciate that. 32, by the way. I don't know what he's thinking. Hey. Kevin Toten, I wasn't going to say anything about you all service. I was going to let you slide. The truth shall set you free. Well, all right. Who wants to come preach the sermon today? Amen. All right. Look, so on my yeah, you ready? So we're going to look at, I think we've been kind of in a series looking at our values. We put up a couple new banners over the last 6 months or so, maybe a little bit longer than that, but these kind of more accurately reflect. After our staff retreat, we spent some time praying and talking together and really kind of, just wordsmithing some of the things that we thought were valuable to us as a church. We asked ourselves questions like, how would you describe Pin Oaks to a friend who doesn't go? We asked ourselves questions like, if we had to boil down some of the basic things that what we look like who are we? What would those things be? And we came up with these different thoughts, and they're all they've got a title, and then they've all got a sentence to kind of expand on the title. And we've just been walking through them one at a time. We're in the fifth one right now, and it's about servant leaders. And I really feel like servant leadership is one of the most countercultural ideas or things that the Bible has to teach about. The rest of our world is all about me. The rest of the world, all the teaching you get in our world is all about what I can get, what I can do, how I can get more or whatever. And yet then there's this biblical teaching that's like anti-cultural that way. It's not about me. It's really about other people and how that I serve them and how I care for them and how I value them. And so the statement that goes on that banner says, in response to all that Jesus has done, we, as his followers, we as the ones who listen to and try to emulate his teaching, we're going to serve humbly and to the best of our ability. That's a twofold challenge. One, to serve without thinking too much of yourself, right? Humility is really just that, just not thinking too much of yourself. It's not thinking less of yourself. It's just making sure your thoughts about who you are measured correctly in response to God or in comparison to God. So serve humbly. But then it says serve to the best of our ability. To not just kind of mail it in, right, when we're here with God. We don't just kind of, just like, okay, I'm whatever. I'll just kind of just go through the motions, get it done. No, God wants our best. He wants, I mean, can you imagine the difference in our worship team if they just decided one day to be like, whatever, I'm just going to kind of get through it, just kind of get up here and glad to do it, sort of. Doc would be like playing notes that are about a half of a interval off, a little flat all day. That wouldn't be good. He's the bass. He anchors everything. Amy would forget the words to the song she sung 100 times. Oh, wait. Oh! I'm just kidding. I'm just messing around. Look, these guys, they put their heart into it. The one thing I can say, I give Amy a hard time, and I love doing it, but the one thing I do say about her, though, is this, and I told you this week, so you know it's true as you walk out the door. It's like talking to a teenager. She has a job to do. But one thing is, her heart comes out in everything she does, right? And that's so much of worship means surrendering our whole self and all of us into that moment. And I feel like Amy really does a great job of that. She gives her very best in that moment, all of herself. And that's part of that phrase is humbly and then to the best of our abilities. And then it puts some regions, like it gives us locations here at church, across the street, and around the globe. Obviously, that comes out of the Great Commission. We've just reworded it a touch to make sense for this area of servant leadership. And that's got to become more than just a slogan. It's got to be something more than we just read on the wall. It's got to become a model of our life and how we live every single day, because this is what it means to live a life of leadership. It's not about power. It's not about position. It's all about service. Are you willing to serve other people around you? So biblically, that's everywhere in the Bible. Let me read 3 verses as a foundation before we jump in. You look at Mark 10:45. It says, "For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but instead to serve, to give his life as a ransom for many." Colossians 3:23, one of my favorite verses in all the Bible, says, "Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters or not for men," depending on your version. And then it goes on to say we do that because we know that we receive our inheritance not from man, but from the Lord, the one who will reward us for our faithfulness, the one who will reward us for our service, the one who rewards us for that humility and best is not necessarily those around us. That's not the reward we're looking for. The reward we're looking for is from our Lord in heaven, who looks down and says, "Well done, good and faithful servant," in the end. That's the reward we should be craving, right? Philippians 2:3, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in all things, learn how to value others more than yourself." Learn how to value others above yourself. These verses paint a very clear picture for us about some of the callings that Jesus puts in front of us. Not only that, but some of the very clear things and ways he lived his life. And he gives us that example because of his own life and how he lived as a servant leader. And so our job is to follow that example, work with excellence for God, and then put others before ourselves. It doesn't mean that we ignore ourselves, right? It just says put people in the proper perspective. Put them in the right place. The first thing I want to look at is this idea of the example of Jesus out of Mark 10:45. In the ancient world, leaders were measured by their ability to command armies, to gain wealth, wield authority, right? That's how you were measured. pretty sure we still see that right now. That's how we have a tendency to work through, live our lives, is with this sense of what can you do? What are you capable of? What can you add to me? You know, what can you give me that I don't already have? But Jesus comes to earth, God in the flesh, lives and changes everything, turns everything upside down, and lives a different way. He says, I didn't come to be served. That's not my goal. I came to serve. And then he proved it. He goes and he finds his disciples and he washes their feet. Washing people's feet was not the role of the master. It wasn't the role of the person who owned a home. When you invited people into your home, you invited them in to take care of them. And I know we don't live by some of these rules anymore. We've kind of changed the way we treat each other, how we invite people in our house. But the rules back then were very, very rigid, and it was about cleanliness, and there was a lot of stuff that revolved around it. So when you invite people into your home, there was an expectation you're going to care for them. You're going to feed them, right? You're going to provide a place to have meals and a place to sleep if necessary. You would care for them like they were your own family. Well, when they would have meals, their tables aren't like your tables. We've gotten soft. We got to have high chairs, cushy chairs, right? We want to eat almost standing up because we don't want to hurt our back. We don't want to sit on the ground, but they sat on the ground, right? Their tables were very low, and they'd sit cross-legged many times right next to the table. What did that put next to the table? Yeah, how do I feel about feet? I think we know that. That ain't right. Look, God and I are going to have some discussions about feet. When I get to heaven, when that day comes, and according to Blake, that's probably any time now, so it's been a lot of fun to serve y'all. When I get to heaven, we're going to have some conversations about feet. Now let me complicate it for you, right? Not only are the feet close, but we have things like, I don't know, Air Jordans that protect our feet. You go to work and you do something that, like, let's say you're in construction. You got fancy boots, sometimes with steel toes in them that protect your feet. When I go on a hike, I wear specific kind of hiking boots that will keep my feet dry in case I have to do a river crossing, right? They're waterproof. They keep the water out. We have some fancy technology for our feet today. It's probably why they smell so bad. Because back then, they didn't have the same technology. The only thing that they were really worried about was protecting the bottoms of their feet. Right? So most shoes were sandal-like shoes, left open. And when we travel today in nice air-conditioned cars to and from place, right? We get buses and airplanes and all these cool things, and it's easy to get from place to place. It wasn't easy for them to get from place to place. Most people couldn't afford horses, right? So they had donkeys. Most people couldn't use the donkeys to take them from place to place because they had to take stuff with them. The donkeys took their stuff, so what did they do? They walked alongside the donkey. Doesn't seem like a big deal, does it? But they walked on dirty, muddy streets, nasty, donkey-traveled streets. Hopefully you're not picking up what I'm putting down here. You get me? That's disgusting, right? That's what people walked in every day, bro. And so then they would sit down, and when they come into your home, it was responsible, it was right, it was customary and expected that when you invited that you had somebody that you had hired to wash the feet of your guests so you could sit cleanly together, right? You could sit and eat together without worry or concern over hygiene and being clean. And so they would hire somebody to come in, a servant would come in, and they would clean the feet of the guests. It wasn't for the master to do. So when Jesus meets his disciples and he starts the process of cleaning their feet, this is something that not only somebody who is the master shouldn't do, but this is Messiah. This is God's answer to a big problem. This is God in the flesh, and he's the one doing that work. He's the one bathing their feet, washing them, preparing them to be able to have a meal together. He touched lepers when no one else would. Leprosy was and is still highly contagious. And not only were they unclean, right? Not only did they have a disease, but they were considered unclean. So it's ceremonially a problem. And Jesus was like, no, look, you're healed. Like, and now he touched the lepers to make sure they were healed. This is the kind of stuff Jesus emulates for us over and over and over again, ultimately expressing itself in the cross, where he laid down and sacrificed his own life for the rest of the world. Reality is, guys, the world has a big problem. The world around us has a major problem. We see it shown in all sorts of different ways. The problem, they think the problem is the color of skin. This person has this much money and I only have this much money. They think the problem is this war that's happening here and that war that's happening there. They think the problem are all these external things, but we know the problem as followers of Jesus. The problem is sin. Sin is at the root of all the problems, and Jesus said, look, I'll do whatever I've got to do to serve people, right, with an answer to that problem. I call it the disease, right? It's a sin disease, and we need a cure, and we have a cure. Jesus made sure we had a cure. It was sacrifice, right? That's what it was, and he showed and did sacrifice for us, and it says in Scripture that Christ died for us even while we were still sinners, even while we are unworthy, even while we didn't deserve it, even while it wasn't or shouldn't have been ours, even while most people would have been like, no, I'm not, I wouldn't do that for them. I know what they say about me. I know how they treat me. I know what, just fill in the gap. But he did it. He did it anyway, and I think it had to be done that way. It had to be done that way, or else I don't think it has the kind of power that it does because of his example. He laid down his own life. Later, we're going to celebrate communion together, and it's the perfect expression of this moment, this service, this sermon. He laid down his life. He made sacrifices he didn't have to make. In 2003, during the Iraq War, a U.S. Army captain named Scott Southworth met a young orphan boy. And when he met him, he learned that he'd had a cerebral palsy, and he had been abandoned by his family. He was unable to walk to care for his own needs, and he had been left in a Baghdad orphanage. Well, Captain Southworth decided that he had a connection with this kid. And so even though he had a command to lead and things to do, when he had free time, he began visiting the orphanage and began hanging out and talking with the boy. Every chance he got, day after day. If he could squeeze 5 minutes, he'd take 5 minutes. If he could squeeze longer into his day, he would take longer. Eventually, and against all odds, through years of paperwork and all the bureaucracy, he ended up adopting this young man and brought him to the U.S. And now today, he can walk with braces. He's thriving in life, getting an education, and has a loving family to take care of him. He didn't have to do that. That was a choice. The sacrifice was a choice. Right? And he made that choice every day along the way, building a relationship with somebody that nobody else wanted to have a relationship with. But he saw value. He saw value in that young man. He saw someone that needed to be loved, and he said, I'm going to make time to love him. Right? And that young man ended up stealing his heart. And he wanted to be a dad to that young man. That's servant leadership. He didn't have to do that. There was nothing about his life that told him he needed to, but he wanted to, and he did, and he served to the end at which it worked out the way it did. Guys, Jesus shows us that sense of greatness. He shows us that reality of greatness, and that reality is that it's not about climbing higher. It's not about getting more. It's not about achieving this or that or something else or another rung on the ladder of whatever worldly success is. It's about learning how in the midst of whatever you're doing to bend low, to put your knee to the ground, to get on the same level as other people. I had a pastor tell me very early on in my ministry career, he said, look, if you want to relate to kids, right, because as a pastor, you're going to have to relate to kids as much as you do adults. You're a pastor to the whole church, not just adults. Even though we got great children's pastors, right? Where are they? They're not in here, they're over there, that's why. Gotcha. Makes good sense. What am I thinking? We got great children's pastors, and we got people who are stepping up right now to extend children's ministry and to do great things in it, and I'm so thankful for them. But he said, look, you have to pastor the kids as much as you do the adults. You're pastor over the whole church. You can't just sign off kids ministry to somebody else. That kind of made sense. I came from being a youth pastor, so it kind of rung true. I'm like, no, and that's still a value I have today. It's expressed over here in family focused. Right? It's still a value I carry with me. Every one of you has a place in servant leadership. You have a role to be a servant leader wherever you are, wherever God plants you. But he told me, he says, look, if you want to relate to kids, you got to learn. You're scary. I mean, good news is I am scary personally. The good news is I have people like still humbling me today, like, Blake Grundy, who, goes at me every chance he gets. I see him back there. He's hiding. He's sitting down. Oh, he's raising his hand like, I see you. I got you. Got you. He says, but here, if you want to serve kids, you can't do it lording over them, standing over them. They're scary. He said one of the greatest things you can do as a pastor is every time you see a kid is bend down. learn how to make yourself low. Get on their level. That's one of the things that I think made Brent and Heather's ministry so powerful, right? They would get on the level. They dress up as characters, and they will play that character right in front of your adult face and not bat an eye. And I love that, right? Like that's bending low. It doesn't matter your opinion. Why? Because their ultimate goal was to make sure that Jesus was magnified in the life of our kids. This guy told me, like, you want to be a good pastor, you gotta bend down, bro. You got to get eyeball to eyeball. You can't just stand up there and expect these kids to be like, yeah, whenever I look, you test me. Be careful who you test this with, because you can't terrorize kids without having some kind of kickback. But if you approach a kid standing up and you stand over them, they're going to freak out. They might still freak out when you get down on their level, right? They might still cry, but you have a greater chance of connecting. It seems silly, but man, to me, it's a good example. It's a reminder the little things we do in life mean something, right? The little acts of service, the little things that we do, they mean something, and we've got to remember that they mean something. So whatever you're on the rush to achieve, right? Whatever path you have this accelerated idea of how to get to something somewhere in this magical ideal that you've created in your head, don't run so fast. Don't run so blindly that you forget to get low and serve people around you. Practice some humility, right? Practice some humility and learn how to serve other people. Colossians 3:23, talk about the excellence of service. The mindset of service is what we want to talk about here. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as though you are working for the Lord, because that's ultimately who it is we live our life for. And that means that every act of service, whether it's preaching a sermon, holding a baby in the nursery, cooking a meal for a neighbor who's sick, or going on a mission trip across the globe, it all matters. Every one of those things matters. There's no job too big, no job too small. They all advance the kingdom and the work that God is calling us into. Excellence in service isn't about it being perfect. It's about making sure that the entirety of who you are is put into it. All of you. Because you're doing it for the Lord, not for you, not for someone else. You're doing it for Him. So when we serve in church, we're not just filling a role. That's not the answer. You're throwing yourself into a role, right? We're not just worshiping. We're not just singing. We're worshiping God. When we help our neighbor across the street, we're not just being nice to them. We're showing them the love of Jesus. That's what we're doing, right? I had an encounter with my neighbor this week. How many of these stories have you heard before? And the next few sentences we're going to cover are going to be, oh, wow, that really happened? I had an encounter with my neighbor this week. We expect it to probably be kind of crazy now. But it was a really good encounter. We haven't always had the best of relationships, and there's 1,000 layered reasons as to why that's the truth. Some of them might be my reasons. Some of them might be theirs. But we've had, apparently, standing water in our backyard for quite a while. What does that mean in Anna? Mosquitoes, floods. It means in Anna that our very valued water system, it might as well be laced with gold, right? Means that somebody's going to have a really high bill. I did not want that somebody to be me. I did not want that somebody to be me. Anybody raising teenagers? You know, you don't want unexpected high bills. So I kind of got worried. The good thing is my neighbor got worried for me. He started seeing water come under his fence, our fence line. And earlier in the week, he had gone out and he had checked for me. He had made sure. Now, I didn't know this. He just alerted me to the fact that there was water. Hey, there's water coming under your fence. So I started doing work. I'm out there looking at my meter, and I'm wondering why there's not 27,000 pounds of mud or sand in my water meter box, right? And yet I get down in there and I start moving stuff away, and I see, oh, good, my water's not running. What's that mean? If your water meter's not running, what's that mean? There's no leaks in the system. Woo! Neighbor comes down. He's like, what are you so happy about? I said, I don't have any leaks. I just checked. He goes, oh, I checked earlier in the week. I should have told you. Oh, yeah, you should have told me. But he did it. Like, he still did it. Like, and that way he knew. Like, I wasn't getting charged ridiculous amounts of money. He goes, I texted you just in case there was something else going on I didn't know about. But, yeah, yours is good. Yours is good. Water department came out. Our meters look good. I'm like, oh, he did a good thing for me. He did a kind thing for me. right? Even though things may not be great between us, he served my family. And he protected. He goes, I wouldn't want anybody to get that shocking water bill, right? That was nice. And in that moment, here's what it did. One, it softened our relationship, made our relationship a little bit better, right? That's good. Opened us up to a better relationship moving forward. Two, the first thing I thought was, I wonder how I can return that. How can I return that kindness? How can I do, and you know what, immediately I thought of his statement, I just didn't want you to get a shocking water bill. And I thought, well, water's not coming from me, it's not coming from him. Water can travel. So I went to all my neighbors for the next 45 minutes. Had some really great conversations with some Ring doorbells. It was really cool. Really fancy. Hi, I can't come to the door right now, but you can leave a message if you'd like. Okay, I'm going to leave a message because I'm going to be that guy. Standing on somebody's porch, no one around, talking to a door that's not open. It was the weirdest thing, I'm not going to lie. It was very odd, but I'm that dude. I guess it's because of my elderly age, but I'm that guy. Hey, I'm your neighbor. We just discovered a lot of water in our backyard. It's not our meter. We've checked it. I don't want you to get a surprising bill. Just letting you know, probably need to check your sprinkler system. And just walked around, and I had 2 or 3 neighbors that actually came out. We talked. We left that front porch, man, way better for it. My neighbor's directly behind me. She's like, thank you so much for reaching out. It's so nice to know that people are looking out for me. I just don't think that happens anymore. That moved from just checking on their water bill to being something much bigger in that statement, didn't it? It did to me. And maybe it doesn't seem like a big deal to you, but when she says, I just don't think people looked out for each other anymore, that's a big deal. That was, in that moment, a little bit of the love of Jesus moving out of me to them. Did I have more things to do with the 45 minutes in my day that I gave? 100%. Sure I did. Y'all know me. You know my life is crazy. But it was worth it. Those 45 minutes were worth it. Right? She felt like somebody was looking out for her, even though there was nobody looking out for her before. It's worth that. And it's a little thing. You may not think that's a big deal, but I guarantee it was a bigger deal to her than it was. My neighbor to do what he did for me was a big deal, and a bigger deal than maybe other people think. But serving always ends up being a bigger deal than you think it's going to be. It always ends up being a better deal than you think it's going to be. You just got to do it. You've got to get outside the comfort zone and go do it, and do it as unto the Lord. Here's something that's interesting. And when you read about serving in the church, the early church, the word that was always tied to it was deacon, right? And it literally meant servant, or one of the other ways to describe it is table waiter. I thought that's a really cool picture, right, in my head. And so it just reminds me, the very first leaders of the church, they weren't chosen for their eloquence. They weren't chosen for their power. They weren't chosen for their bank account. They weren't chosen by the clothes they wore or the cars that they drove. They weren't chosen for the title that they had. They were chosen because their willingness to serve at tables, to meet practical needs. Because that's what a table waiter is to me. Somebody who's willing to meet a practical need of somebody else, right? To serve them, to take care of those basic things in their life. I think that's how much God values humility and wholehearted service. He set us our examples from this group of people. So then there's that attitude, that mindset, right? We talked about the excellence. Now let's talk about the mindset, Philippians 2:3. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in everything, or rather in humility, depending on which version of the Bible you read, but in everything, or rather in humility, value others above yourselves. Value others above yourselves. That true servant leadership is less about ability and it's more about attitude. You might have incredible skill, but if your heart is proud, you've missed the point. I told this in the first service. I talked about one of our worship team members, Aaron. I'm going to do it again, man. I'm sorry. Look, Aaron's a carpenter. That's fair. By trade, built all sorts of elaborate things in your life, specifically stairs, right? Stairs, by the way, if you've ever tried to build a set of stairs, they're tricky. They sneak up on you. You're thinking, oh, no, it's just some numbers. Oh, no. No, they'll get you. Stairs are tricky little things. Geometry and all that stuff comes into play. And you better know what you're doing, especially if they're going to be anything other than ordinary stairs. One day I talked to Aaron after church. I said, hey, you know what? One of the things people really dislike about our church is, especially when it's raining or it has rained, we end up with a moat, the moat of Pin Oaks out front. How many of you have crossed the moat before? Raise your hands high. Be proud. That's a badge of courage right there. Yes! Water runs off the back of our property, and it runs right in front of our church down to the sewer drains that are at the corner of the parking lot. And then the drains take them out, and it moves around. Eventually, one day, we will probably get another set of drains on this side, and that will take some of that water away. But until then, because that costs lots and lots of money to do, I needed a solution because y'all don't like coming to church, stepping in a big puddle of water and having a wet, stanky shoe and sock, because it doesn't matter who you are. Your shoes get wet, everything stinks. All of it. You're like, nope, not me. I don't care. All of it. And it's uncomfortable. It's not fun, right? And a lot of people end up having a bad experience because of that. And as a pastor, I don't want people to have bad experiences coming to church, but you couldn't avoid the water. No matter what you did, you can't avoid the water in the front of that church. And so I told Aaron, I said, hey, man, we need a solution. What do you think? He's like, I could probably build a ramp. Well, he's a stair builder, so I know for sure he can build anything he puts his mind to. And I know it. Look, you know how I know it? He built this really nice set of stairs over here. That's pretty. I guess the first time he brought that up, I'm like, did we buy that from somewhere? He's like, no, I built that. I'm like, they're pretty. They're gorgeous. Right? There's high skill in Aaron's life. High skill. Obvious skill. I communicate a need, and you know what he did? Silently behind the scenes, started going to work, trying to figure out an answer, trying to create a solution. You saw the solution when you came in today, didn't you? You may think, no big deal. That's a big deal to me. He served. He served quietly. He didn't even ask me for anything. You just did it. After we talked about it, you're like, he just said, I can solve that problem. I can do this. And he just did it. That's servant leadership. He was thinking about the needs of people who are going to walk in one day when the next tsunami or hurricane hits Anna, Texas, like Friday night. By the way, that was a hurricane. I don't know where you come from. That was a hurricane. I'm all about, I love standing on my front porch every time there's a tornado looking like the biggest fool in the neighborhood. I'm the first one to sign up for that, right? People are getting in closets, and I'm stepping outside. Like, hey, that look pretty good. There goes a trampoline. Oh, that looked like a trampoline. Mm-hmm. Oh, look at that. Yeah, those clouds look really funny. What was that? Was that a cow? Okay, I don't know. But oh, hey, that weird funnel-looking thing's coming to us. Was that just 3 human people that just flew by what was that? And we just stand out on the porch. That's how we are in Texas. It's just Texas, right? Just Texas. We encountered this at Friday night at the football game. That's where we were when it happened, out in the stadium. We had a visiting team from Arizona, and I think they all thought their lives were going to end. When the lightning alerts went off, it sets off a siren, and I shouldn't have laughed. I did. I'm sorry. I'm the same guy that will watch YouTube videos of people being scared from around the corner when they walk around and laugh my head off because I love watching people get scared. These people were scared. Now that shouldn't be funny. I know it. God forgive me. I'm working on me, so y'all pray for me. But man, they went, pew! I'm like, what? The rest of it, all of us on the other side are like, well, yeah, man, that's starting to come down. That wind's pretty heavy. Whoa, okay, yeah, all right. Well, we'll see. We'll probably still be able to get a game in, all right? And this is Texas, y'all. This is Texas. Like, we don't care. We just don't care, right? We just don't care. And all in all, in the end, when all this is said and done, and we get to the end of this, we start thinking about valuing human life and start raising the value of other people around us, looking at the value of them in a different way. I experienced that a little bit in that storm. So all that to say, I'd met a kid right before the game started. He works for Texas high school football. It's another like broadcasting kind of social media arm in the state of Texas. Had maybe 3 minutes of exchange between the two of us. He's like, thank you so much for helping me get started and kind of get my feel around. I really do appreciate it. I said, no problem, man. If you need anything during the game, just I'm not hard to find. Just whatever I can do to help. We're all just trying to get pictures and video, right? And he said, oh, thank you. Well, not too long after that, storm hit. Everything went crazy. I see Chief back there. He was all in the middle of it too. And I mean, literally, the stadium went absolutely berserk. Things were flying everywhere, flags and tents and gear and people left stuff all over the stands. I took off because I went to the locker room. I didn't even know when it started raining because I was in the locker room. And this kid, as I walked to the back door, as the rain just was like coming down in sheets, comes through the back door carrying my camera equipment from the sideline. I'd never met the kid before, and he cared enough to grab that equipment. And I didn't even think about it, and in the end, I left Blake's equipment sitting out there. So he was a better servant than I was. I didn't even know. I didn't even realize. It didn't even dawn on me in that moment. But he in 3 minutes, decided it was worth serving me. Truth is, he didn't decide in those 3 minutes if it was worth serving me. He already decided long ago that serving people was worth it. Didn't matter who it was he met. He learned somewhere how to value other people in such a way that he was just going to do it. And he did. I was deeply grateful on many levels. Forget the fact that it was expensive stuff, but it was a moment of deep gratitude. Right? He had the right mindset, the right attitude. It wasn't just about him. Right? It was about those that were around him too. Aaron exemplified that. This kid exemplified that. And I think it just shows us how powerful having a humble approach to the everyday activity of our lives is. Humility is the ability to see people not as tools for our goals, but as image bearers of God, worthy of love, worthy of care, worthy of being invested in, worthy of getting to know, worthy of spending time with. So when Blake talks about, home groups and leaders, that's worthwhile, right? And we need the humble people in our church to say, I'll serve that end. I'll serve that goal. I'll do that thing because they're worth it. I mean, imagine two janitors for a minute. You've got two janitors have the same job. One says, I just clean floors. Nobody even notices me. Right? And the other janitor on the other side doing the same job says, I'm preparing a clean, welcoming space where people can meet with God. What's the difference? Attitude. Right? Same job, different attitude. One sees it as drudgery. The other sees it as ministry. Right? When we humble ourselves, even the smallest act becomes kingdom work. Even the smallest thing. So how do we apply this? How do we live this out in our everyday lives? In response, remember the phrase underneath that banner says, in response to all he's done, we will serve humbly and to the best of our ability here at church, across the street, and around the globe. Well, we gave some practical advice in that sentence, right? Think about how you're serving people here at church. Everybody should have a place they're serving at their church in some way, shape, or fashion. Right? Serve in a ministry, in the nursery, lead a small group, greet at the door, pray for one another. No role is too small when it's done for the right purpose. Across the street, be the neighbor who listens. Be the one who lends a hand. One who shares Christ's love in everyday life. When that stadium got turned upside down, and it did get turned upside down, Chief, I'm not lying, am I? It was a mess, right? When the rain finally passed, I felt like I saw 50, 60, 70 people all rush onto the field and start picking stuff up and making sure it got back to where it needed to belong. Somebody's personal stuff, team stuff, didn't matter what it was. They all assembled to try to turn it around so these kids could play this fun game that they'd come to play. And many hands made light work, and I think it probably took them 10 minutes to clean it all up. Right? But if we would have put a social media post out the day before and said, hey, we need to clean the stadium and get ready for a team to come in from Arizona, how many people do you think would have shown up? I doubt we would have had 60 or 70. Right? I doubt we would have had 60 or 70. I'm thankful for what I saw because it just reminds me of just how powerful it is and how much our attitude can change. It wasn't about how busy they were. It wasn't about what was going on. Right? It was all about their attitude changed. It was worth it. The investment was worth it. The investment's worth it when it comes to service. Do it here at church, right? No role too small. Do it across the street. Be the neighbor who listens. Lend a hand, right? And do it around the globe. Support missions. Pray for those who are doing missionary work. Or even go yourself. Go yourself, right? I think I'll just tell you straight out, I think every single person who says they love Jesus at some point ought to figure out a way to go to a different culture to share Jesus with them in whatever way you can. You build fences? Go build fence for somebody in some other country for a little while and share Jesus while you're there. Right? Share Jesus while you're there. Tell them about the Lord. Right? If you build stairs, I don't know, but that might become a thing somewhere, and you might be able to go build stairs in Uganda. I don't know. Why Uganda? I don't know. If you go to Uganda anytime in the next 2 years, I'm taking credit for that, by the way. I'm just kidding. It's just a joke. If you feel the love of the Lord in your life, we ought to be compelled to go serve others to help them feel that same love. So I don't know where you want or need to go. You may not want to go anywhere, but you need to go somewhere. I really want to encourage you to do it. I think every Christian should do that at some point in their life. Not later. You should do it as soon as you can. Right? You should do it as soon as you can. So let's wrap it up. Servant leadership is not optional for us as followers of Jesus. It's our calling. He saved us to the point of death, and his death on the cross, death, burial, and resurrection, that whole thing shows us the value of leadership. Makes it clear, servant leadership. That's our same calling, right? We serve in response to all that he's done, and if he was willing to give up everything in order to provide the medicine, right, the cure for the disease that we have, we need to be ready to go to that same length, serve to the point of sacrifice in our lives. So the questions that you have to ask yourself as we begin to take communion is, where does God call me to serve humbly? Where can I serve out of humility in my life? Who around me needs to see Jesus through somebody else? So how can I serve that need? What would it look like if I were to serve right here at church, across the street, and around the globe? Where are you serving here at the church? Where are you serving in your neighborhood? And have you ever taken the opportunity to get beyond our borders and into another country to serve them? What you'll find is that people everywhere are accepting of the behavior of servant leaders. In fact, they're blessed by it. Most people welcome it. At first, I thought my neighbors would never answer the door, and yet when I told them what I was doing, they engaged. They were thankful, right? I bet some had a discussion like, I didn't think a neighbor would ever do that. That's really nice of him. It helps change perspective, right? And the greatest change that we can bring about through our humility and service is that somebody might go from not seeing Jesus to having had seen him because of us. The world says be great by climbing higher. That's what the world tells us. Don't worry about other people. Use them. All they are stepping stones for you to get to the next height. You know, you step all over people everywhere you go. That's what the world teaches. But Jesus' example is very different. He says, be great by getting lower. Be great by service. Be great in humility. And that's what I pray for our church, that we follow this example, and that humility and wholehearted service is what comes from us. Right? No matter how you lead or where you lead, in whatever you think are the smallest ways you lead, and whatever you think are the biggest ways you lead, doesn't matter. Wherever you get an opportunity to influence other people, I pray that it's marked with humility and in a sense of wholehearted service for that. And I think that changes the way that we're known in the world, and it changes the way that Jesus is known in the world. And that's the ultimate end goal for a Christ follower. Change the way Jesus is known in the world by the way you choose to live. Let's pray. Jesus, thank you for being our ultimate example and servant leader. Thank you for how you've given your life for us. And without it, we wouldn't have what we need. We know that 100%. Teach us to walk in humility, to serve with a sense of excellence, and to love other people the same way that you loved other people. Use the work we do. Use the things that we're about every day, right here across the street and around the globe, to bring glory to you, to magnify your kingdom, to help people see the truth of who it is you are and what it is you want to do. Thank you so much, God, for what you've done for us. Today we pass these symbolic pieces of stuff. We pass bread and we pass these cups, and they're filled with a symbol of your sacrifice. All of this is a reminder of your sacrifice. All of it is a reminder of your servant leadership. All of it is a reminder that we are called to live differently, to value others even above ourselves, to serve them with our whole heart. You did that same thing for us. You allowed your body to be broken. You allowed the blood to be flown. You, God, were willingly obedient to become a sacrifice, even for people who refused, stood in complete defiance to needing it. You still did it. And then you offered that sacrifice right to them. No matter how defiant they are, you still did it, and you made it available to them. Your word says, while we were still sinners, Christ died on the cross. While we were still sinners, while we were unworthy, reminding us that it's not about what we do, it was about your attitude. Your attitude trumped what we did. And we need that. I needed that. In my own life, I've been the worst of the worst. I know my prior examples. I know what I used to be. But because of you, I know what I am not. And I know how I've changed, and I see myself differently because you've made me different. And you can do that work in anybody who will humble themselves, believe in you. And God, I pray for that today. That somebody who needs it will find you. Somebody who needs it will find you today. And that we can leave here determined to be the servant leaders you've called us to be. Thank you for this time. Thank you for this reminder. As we eat of this bread and we drink of this cup, God, I pray that it is a constant reminder, a steady reminder to us in our life of what you are willing to do for us. And may it bring us joy. May it bring us a sense of challenge that of what we have to live up to in our life. May it bring us to a point where we ask really serious questions about our life. Am I what I'm supposed to be? Am I where I'm supposed to be? Am I living up to the standard, God, that you've put in front of me? And where I'm not, forgive me. And I pray we ask ourselves that every time before we step into this moment, this powerful moment. Am I right? Am I where I need to be? Do a work in us over these next few moments. Pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. We'll have people up here ready to pray with you today for any need you might have. Any need. Good, big, small, whatever. It doesn't matter. Whatever's going on in your life. We'll have people here that would lovingly, willingly, excitedly accept you to pray with and over you in your life. And so I want to encourage you that. Let's stand.